So a protective hairstyle is used when you want to prevent over styling or over manipulating your hair, right? They allow you to tuck your hair away for a few weeks and can be created with or without extension hair added. These hairstyles are used as a method to help retain length, right? That's what people use them for, to help retain length as much as possible.
Yep.
These are a few pictures of protective hairstyles. I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
Nope, I'm just
Oh,
agreeing with you.
okay, got it. All right, so we can do, cornrows. We have some box braids. We have some even chunkier box braids that people like to do. You have your faux locks. That's very popular right now. You also have wigs. People don't realize that wigs fall into a protective hair category as well because of the fact that you have to do cornrows. A lot of times people leave those cornrows in for a long time. And in that effort, they're thinking that they're protecting their hair as well. So this is why wigs fall underneath that category. Crochet hairstyles and extensions as well is also a protective hairstyle or falls into that category. And these are some hairstyles that you can have that are protected with your own hair. So again, we have cornrows, because cornrows can be done on your own hair as well as two-strand twists that can be tucked in or pinned up into place for a couple of weeks. And this is without hair added. So you have two categories. You have protective styles with hair added, and you have some without hair added. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the advantages. What are the advantages sometimes of wearing protective hairstyles? Well, this is what is marketed as being, an advantage. So helps you retain your length, right? Reduces the amount of time it takes to manage your hair. Offers change by allowing you to try new styles. It allows you to try new styles without compromising the health of your own hair. So you may add color, you may add length, you may add a certain texture. It allows you to just have change, which is very important in our culture, the Black culture. We like to try new things with our hair. So protective styles allow us to do that without compromising the integrity or the health of our own hair, right? And protective hairstyles also last a little bit longer. So let's say you exercise, you work out, you run, you sweat a lot in your head. You can actually use a protective hairstyle to hold, to last longer if you're pressed for time, right?
Yep.
So these are some disadvantages now of protective hairstyles. So hair loss is a big disadvantage when it comes to protective hairstyles, specifically if the hairstyle is very tight. So a lot of times people think that tighter is better, and actually tighter is not better. When the hairstyle is too tight and pulling the hair follicles, it can cause great damage to your hair follicles, and sometimes that damage is not reversible. So we have to be careful. So hair loss is a big disadvantage when it comes to protective hairstyles. Also, too, scalp disorders. So I'm talking about like dandruff, itching, sometimes inflammation. So inflammation is when you have inflammation when you feel like any burning, any tingling, any soreness of the scalp, any sensitivity that's ongoing that comes up often. That is all an indication of inflammation, and that's a warning sign that your follicles are basically unhappy. And if they stay inflamed for too long, what ends up happening is you can't get a permanent bald spot. So you have to be very careful with inflammation circulating the hair follicle. And we'll get into that more in detail a little bit later. And then limited access to your scalp. So with protective hairstyles, especially, braids, cornrows, or hair extensions, for example, you have limited access to your scalp. So what ends up happening is you're not able to shampoo your hair as often because you don't want to mess the style up, or the hair that's added will get messed up or it will get frizzy if you wet it. So you cannot always shampoo your hair as often as you should. So that is also something else that's a disadvantage. You have limited access to take proper care of your scalp. Okay, 1 second. Okay, now this is the big question right here. Are protective styles healthy for your hair? So protective styles are healthy for your hair, or are safe, I should say, safe for your hair when you use them under the right conditions. So you have to be a candidate. You have to be your scalp has to be healthy, or your scalp has to be, look a certain way or feel a certain way to be able to wear a protective hairstyle. And you have to be willing to use them in moderation. you shouldn't want to use them back to back. Like, you know, you take them out and then you don't give your scalp a break. You put them back in, all because it's just more convenient and you really don't want to be bothered with your hair. Those are not reasons that you want to use a protective style. So you have to be willing to use them in moderation if you want your scalp and your hair to be healthy. And also, too, if you're willing to limit the tension. Again, tighter is not always better. Tighter is never better. So you should never be in pain. And you should never see any redness, any soreness, any pimples at the site where your braids are. Those are all indications that your braids or your style is just too tight. Okay, and we don't want follicles. We don't want our follicles to be pulled because, again, that leads to inflammation, and inflammation leads to bald spots, which is more like permanent hair loss. Okay.
Right. And as you were talking, I just wrote down this thought where when you're doing a protective style, we should be prioritizing our scalp and our hair.
Right.
And think of it as a way we are protecting those things.
Right, exactly, right. So keeping that in mind, if we are protecting it, if that's the purpose of using it, we have to be very careful how we use those, you know, how we use those styles. And, you know, we cannot overuse them. That's the key. We cannot overuse those styles, right? So now this talks about who is a candidate for a protective hairstyle. So it will be someone or people with no existing hair loss. You do not have dandruff, seborrheic dermatitis, or psoriasis, right? And you understand the importance of preventing tension on the scalp. Just like I mentioned before, there has to be certain conditions in order for you to be able to wear a protective style safely, right?
Yep.
So who should limit or stay away from it? So this is just reiterating what I just said. These are the types of conditions where you would look at your scalp and you would say, okay, I am not the person that should get it, or I should limit it, especially protective hairstyles with hair added, because then again, protective styles with hair added tend to pull a little bit more or add a little bit more tension or weight. So someone with hair loss or someone with seborrheic dermatitis or dandruff wouldn't want to get a protective hairstyle with hair added because it's going to add more stress to that scalp and make that condition worse. So those are some instances where you would not want to wear a protective hairstyle, or you will want to reduce it. Okay.
Really quickly. Can you share like just a little bit about what's dandruff? Some people may not have heard of seborrheic dermatitis or know if they have a psoriasis.
Right. Yes. So dandruff is just basically everyone's scalp sheds skin, right? But dandruff, we all have dandruff to a point. But when dandruff becomes more severe is when it sheds faster than it should. And there's different levels or different categories for dandruff. So seborrheic dermatitis will be more of an oily type of dandruff where your sebaceous glands are overactive and cause you to produce too much sebum, and then that also leads to too much flakes on the skin. Now, psoriasis is more of a patchy type of you could say dandruff or buildup on the skin where the flakes are a little bit harder. And if you scratch them, they actually start to bleed and lead to hair loss. So that's the difference between seborrheic dermatitis and psoriasis. And dandruff is just basically, like I said, there's dandruff and then there's different levels to it. So a more excessive type of dandruff will be a seborrheic dermatitis or a psoriasis. It's just all about the flakes. Seborrheic dermatitis, normally you would see yellow flakes. Psoriasis, you're going to see more gray flakes that kind of clump together. They're very hard to remove. And those are the two differences between the two.
Yeah, I used to suffer from seborrheic dermatitis, and it was not fun. And I found that it was a form of inflammation. It was a way of my body telling me it wasn't happy, something was wrong. So you're saying is that when I was having that kind of flare up, I should not be getting any kinds of protective styles.
No, because that's actually going to make your seborrheic dermatitis worse. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times what happens with a lot of protective hairstyles, and we'll get into that also as well, is that you're not able to shampoo as often as you should because you don't want to mess up the style, or the hair may mess up. You know, for certain types of hair, you can't wet them because they'll get frizzy. It'll tangle up with your own hair. So a lot of people will not shampoo their hair till they take the style down. And then all of that buildup is stuck to your scalp because of the simple fact that you weren't shampooing as you should have been. if that makes sense. So that's why you would not be a candidate for a protective hairstyle if you already have one of those conditions. And if inflammation is present, you wouldn't want to put a braid that adds tension on your scalp to an inflamed scalp, because again, it's going to increase the inflammation by pulling.
Right. No, it makes complete sense. Definitely.
Right. Yes. All right. So like I say here down here, I said you should stay away from protective styles with hair added or tight braids with your own hair if you have one of these conditions. And I just went into the reason why, because it increases, inflammation, and that is going to lead to hair loss. So that's the reason why. So inflammation is a major part of this as well, and people rarely make that connection. Okay. So now we get into a little bit about, for me, everything's about hair loss prevention. So if you're more aware of the habits that can cause hair loss, you'll have a better idea of what you can do to kind of like slow it down or stop it. And some types of hair loss are preventable if we know what habits, cause them to happen in the first place. So I found this quote on the Cleveland Clinic website, and I read this article, and it says that it is estimated that more than 50% of women will experience noticeable hair loss. Oh, sorry about that. And why is this important? This is important because hairstyles, again, that pull, add weight, or are too tight will cause traction alopecia or increase other types of hair loss. So, for example, let's say you've been diagnosed with androgenetic alopecia, which is a type of hair loss where you can see this woman, you start to thin in the front right here, and sometimes it'll happen in the front by the temples. It'll also happen at the crown area on top. Also for women, they may experience some thinning in the bang area. Your bang seems a little bit thinner than usual. Your hairline in the front, especially around this area, tends to get a little bit thinner. And what happens is that your follicles become sensitive to androgens, to sex hormone, androgens, right? And it causes the hair to thin in this area right here. So you would definitely not want to put, again, a braid on this, even if the braid is not tight. Just the fact that you're manipulating your scalp in this way on a routine basis is going to cause this hair loss, which is caused by a sensitivity to hormones, to get worse. So you would definitely not want to put any type of braid or even tight ponytails, gels, edge tamers. You would definitely not want to put those things on your hair to pull. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I feel like there are so many women, especially older women, who are going through this and they're noticing hair loss, and they're probably thinking, well, let me slap on a wig, let me do this, thinking it'll help. But you're saying is that it can actually harm.
Yes, it could actually harm. Yes, especially if you're using that hairstyle all the time, which is something that a lot of people do, because what happens is, like I said, protective styles are convenient. It's a way where you can kind of like set it and forget it. You could it's easy for you to fall in that trap of leaving your hair alone for a while, not really taking care of it, because natural hair can be difficult for some people to maintain. And although you may appreciate your natural hair, some of us don't want to take the time or, to learn it, to work with it. And then we fall into the trap of, relying on a protective hairstyle. And then we don't realize that it's causing more damage, especially if you already have a condition like, androgenetic alopecia, or like I mentioned before, seborrheic dermatitis. Okay. Right. So now this goes into what I want to keep reiterating to a lot of people, because I see this in the salon a lot. People say, well, I did the style a little bit tighter because I wanted it to last longer. And again, you don't want to do that. You never want to have a style that's tight, or you never want to have a style that is hurting. And a lot of people stick with the pain. They deal with it because they already made the investment. They already spent the money on the style, and they don't want to take the style down, or they want to just, they love the way the hairstyle looks, but it's just painful. And you can see the scalp is red, it's inflamed. Sometimes people get the white bulbs that kind of like, come up on the scalp, because that is showing how much that hair is being pulled right out of, the bulb is actually being pulled, and that's not good either. So we have to be very cautious. Anytime you see white bulbs or red skin around your hairline, that is a sign that you need to take that protective hairstyle out, because you're losing hair. and you may not be able to reverse it.
Right.
Right. So now we're going to get into traction alopecia. So traction alopecia is a type of hair loss caused by external factors. So external meaning a style you wear that pulls the hair follicle, right? So the hairline and nape will have hair that is thin. So with traction, a lot of people don't realize that it's not just limited to the front of the scalp, that hairline, this area here. It's also can affect the nape area. So the back, a lot of times if you have cornrows that go back, or, your weaves that kind of like are sewn onto this back area all the time, all that weight, because this hair around here is very fragile. So anytime we have too much weight, or we're constantly braiding our hair back this way to hold on to those hairstyles, we tend to have more friction in this back area and around the perimeter, and it will lead to hair loss as well. So a common thing that I see now too is that a lot of women do lose their hair also in the back, and it rarely grows back because of the fact that they have more styles that pull in that back area. It's not just limited to the front, okay? Yeah.
I am learning so much right now. Like, you don't because when you mention the nape, and I feel like that is something we say, like, protect your edges, but no one ever says, but what about the back of your hair?
Yeah,
because you can hide it behind more hair, but
right, yes. And then a lot of people feel like they need to like protect it more. Maybe if I keep braiding it, it will grow. But it's the fact that you keep on braiding it while it's breaking off. Okay?
Right. Yep.
Right. So what are the effects of traction alopecia? So I did want to show some images just so that you guys can see what I see in the salon. Underneath a microscope, this is what the scalp looks like. So you could kind of see how far away the hair follicles are from each other now. And you can also see how this hair right here is very dense, but you can also see that she has some really thin strands of hair growing out of the hair follicles as well. And then you notice the shiny, kind of smooth skin hair. That's all a sign of traction, and that she's losing hair follicles basically. Same thing in this image at the bottom. You can start to see how those hairs right here start to grow very thin, very fine. So you start to lose your density, which is the fullness of your hair. And then you also start to lose, actually hair follicles. They become less active and they no longer produce a hair. So I wrote, using tension hairstyles over a long period of time will slow hair growth and eventually, sorry about that. Let me go back. And will eventually slow hair growth and will slow hair growth, and eventually your hair will stop growing because of scarring. So this is what scarring looks like, guys, right here. So these spaces right here, she should actually have way more hair follicles in these two images, but you can see that skin that's smooth, and you don't see any openings in this area right here where the blue dot is, and that is scarring. Once scar tissue develops, the hair will not grow back, right? So I put scarring causes the destruction of hair follicles. Once your hair follicles are destroyed, hair will not grow. And how you can notice this for yourself is that if you start to notice any shiny, smooth spots around your hairline or in the center of your scalp or the nape of your head, you can know that that may be from scar tissue. So you have to be very careful.
Right. And like what you just said, I'm like, it's almost counterproductive, right? Because you're saying that it slows the hair growth when so many people are doing protective styles with the intention of growing their hair, but they're not seeing that it can be counterproductive.
Right, especially if it's done repeatedly. So if you wear them once in a while, excuse me, 1 second, let me go back here. So if you're wearing the protective hair, the protective style once in a while, that's fine. So the goal of this talk is not really to, bash protective hairstyles, but it's just to let you know how to wear them more, safely, and, the true way to wear them. And it shouldn't be really to retain length. It should just be because, like I said before, you want to try a different hairstyle, or maybe you're going on vacation, you want a special look for your birthday, or as a special treat for a holiday. But you can definitely grow your hair or retain length without using a protective hairstyle. Because like I said before on this slide, as you can see, repeated use of it, even if the style is not tight, will lead to some form of hair loss if you're constantly wearing them all year around and you don't take any breaks. And a lot of people do that. They'll wear it for 3 months, take the protective style down, put it back in again. And their scalp is just not getting a break. I mean, and the hair will grow, but what condition will it be in? And what condition will your scalp be in? That's another question too. You have to think about your scalp health as well. You know?
Right. It's kind of like if you keep your hair in a bun every day, all day, and there are some people, they will wash their hair is still wet, slap it in a bun, leave it like that for days.
Yes, and that's a form of traction too. Ponytails and buns, especially if they're really tight. And it can also damage your curl pattern because you're pulling your hair back wet, you're putting gel and edge tamer on it, and the hair begins to remember to stay straight like that. You know what I mean? So people don't realize that that's where that straight curl damage comes from. The fact that you pull your hair back wet like that, you slicken it back real tight, and you start to lose that curl, you know, slowly but surely. So that damages your hair as well.
Right.
So now we're going to talk about scalp hygiene. So the average protective hairstyle with hair added, I should say, is kept in the hair for about 2 to 3 months, right? So it is challenging for a lot of people to wash their hair with a protective style. So some people, what they do is they'll wait till they take the protective hairstyle, the protective style out to shampoo their hair. And that is a big no-no, right? So when you do that, when you wait that long to shampoo your hair, it really is not a good idea for your scalp. It's just so unhealthy. So this results in a buildup of dandruff, sebum, sweat, dirt, and bacteria on the scalp, right? The buildup does not create a healthy environment for your hair to grow. Right? The buildup does not create a healthy environment for your hair to grow, right? For your hair to grow healthy. So like I said before, your hair will grow, but how healthy is it? So a lot of people be like, well, I use protective hairstyles and my hair grew. But yeah, when you see their ends are like brittle, it's very thin. You know, the hairline is not as full as it should be. So yes, it may have helped your hair to grow in length, but length doesn't always mean healthy. You know what I mean? So people also forget about that. Like your hair could be really long. That doesn't mean that it's healthy. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't like to trim their ends when they need to. So they have these I don't like to use the term scraggly, but that's a term that I use. It's real thin, you know, chopped up ends that need to be trimmed off, and people just won't let them go because, you know, it makes them feel secure that they have that length. But again, length does not always mean healthy. So we have to also change that you know, that dynamic that just because your hair is long, it's healthy. It's not all the time, not in all cases. Okay. And people want these big, like I put this picture because like this is a lot of the, you know, the pictures that people bring into the salon. Like I want my hair to look like that. I want a fro that's big and huge. And, you know, I love this picture and I love it too, because, you know, some people's hair looks fly like that and it's healthy. But if you're not taking care of your scalp, your hair is never going to get like that. You know what I mean? And other factors lead to this too. We have to be a little bit more realistic with our goals sometimes. Genetics play a role, how you eat, you know, your lifestyle, all play a role in how your hair grows. So there's not a lot of serums or oils or hair products that you can rub on your scalp, or even a protective style that's going to get your hair to grow like this if it's not going to happen, you know, naturally. You know, or by you doing what you need to do to take proper care of it. So I think we also need to, you know, look into that as well. Be a little bit more realistic with our hair goals and where we can go with our hair, you know, in terms of just like something sometimes that's just really not realistic in terms of like everyone wanting a big fro. Everyone's hair can't be like that. It doesn't mean that your hair is not healthy. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does. It's about understanding how, like, the limits of your own hair.
Yes, thank you. You said it perfect. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm not trying to tell people don't try to achieve it. I'm just trying to say be a little realistic. You know, sometimes we're hard on ourselves sometimes. You know, so and this is nourish your hair. So I pay attention to your hair after you take out a protective style. You know, your hair will feel dry or tangled. This is because it is hard to nourish your hair when it is tucked away for weeks. And it's true, it's very hard when your hair is tucked away, when it's covered up.
Yep.
It's not easy to take care of it the way you should. So you are going to run into problems when you take that protective hairstyle down. It's going to be dry. It may be a little brittle. You may lose some strands because it's been braided up for some time. So you have to really think about, is this really healthy for my hair? Is it a better option for my hair than me just learning to work with my hair and wearing my own hair out more frequently, more often?
Yep. And also, some people, they are afraid of a wash and go because they feel like it's not a protective style. So they'll do twists, and they'll leave the twists in their hair for a few weeks before they take it down. But in between those 2-3 weeks that their hair is in twist, they're not adding any moisture. They're not cleaning their scalp. So
yes, cleaning it. That's so crucial. And like you said, moisturizing it, you know, again, because your hair will lock if you just leave it like that. You know what I mean? So there are things that we can do if we are going to leave protective hairstyles in, to make sure that when we take our hair down, it is, you know, it's manageable, so that you don't have to worry about it breaking or tangling, or, you know, just being in a state where you can't manage it. You know, because then that's what makes a lot of people put the protective style back in, because they're like, oh, my hair is so hard to manage. It's hard to manage because you keep on repeating the same steps or the same styles that's putting it in that predicament. So you have to change those habits. You know, and that's what I tell people: change those habits so that your hair is more manageable. You have to learn to work with your hair, you know. So don't use a protective hairstyle as like a reason not to take care of your own hair, which is what a lot of people do. You know? Yes. So this is the effects. I put these pictures here. These are the effects of waiting several months to shampoo your hair. So again, like I mentioned before, a lot of people do wait a long time to shampoo their hair because they want their hairstyle to last. And that's a big mistake as well. So this is kind of like where your hair starts off, kind of healthy right here with a healthy scalp, pretty much clean for the most part. There's some flakes there, but it's not too bad. That's normal dandruff. Then you get here, this is about a month out, you start to see that dandruff festering up. Now, this right here, this picture right here is a person who, you know, they might have put some gel on their hair, some oils, you know, some edge tamer to get the front to lay down nice and slick, you know, to slick, you know, to have the laid edges look. And that's about maybe 3 months later. And then what happens after a while is it starts to get, that's what I was talking about earlier, the scarring, the permanent hair loss. So you see how your hair can, you know, your scalp can start hair and end up hair in a very short space of time, you know? So we have to be very careful. A lot of people say, well, I got a protective hairstyle once and I lost so much hair, or I ended up with a bald spot. So it can happen very quickly. Our hair follicles are very sensitive to pulling. So we have to be very careful. A lot of times, a lot of women don't realize what's really going on their scalp until they see it under a microscope. So you may not even realize that you have underlying issues with your scalp until it's until you see a picture under a microscope and you see that you may have some thinning already, not knowing you went and you got the protective style, and that caused even greater damage. That's what happens a lot of times. So you could have started off with one type of hair loss. You didn't know you had that one type of hair loss. You got the protective hairstyle, it pulled, and it made the situation even worse. So now you end up with 2 different types of hair loss on your scalp. And a lot of times it's not reversible. Okay, so let's go. So stabilize hair loss by limiting protective hairstyles. So if you are experiencing hair loss or a scalp disorder, like I mentioned before, psoriasis, dandruff, seborrheic dermatitis, the problem will get worse if you wear protective hairstyles, right? So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So specifically braids or twists with hair added. So if you can see this on your scalp already, if this is visible to you, and some people do have visible hair loss in the center of their scalp, you would not want to braid this. So that's why I put this right here. Do not braid this, right? I put do not braid this, because a lot of people will go get braids on this visible thinning. And I always ask them, well, why did you do that? You saw how thin this was, or the stylist had to have seen how thin this was. Why would they continue to braid this? So you have to be accountable for yourself, and you have to examine your scalp sometimes. If you're not sure, look for a trichologist that can help you. because definitely you do not want to go braid this if you can visibly see this. That's why I put do not braid this, because I want people to have a visual of it. If your scalp looks like this already, you definitely do not want to add any kind of hair to it. I don't care if it's human hair, synthetic hair, do not add hair to this, okay?
Yep.
Right. So these are some other instances. So I wanted to give people, because, you know, we're all, many of us, we're visual. So
yes.
this is another situation where if you see that you have a part that's widening in the center of your scalp, you would not want to use protective styles with hair added, or you want to limit how often you're doing them. So again, you want to do it for a special occasion or a treat, but it should not be, you know, back to back all the time. Again, this is clearly a situation where you would not want to braid your hair or use a protective hairstyle where your hair is going to be up for a couple of weeks, because you can see the scalp is already clogged. So putting any type of braiding or any type of twist and pinning this up will allow this to just fester and get worse. And right here, there's some breakage here. So she's the type of client that if she came into my salon, she has hope for her hair to grow back because it's just broken off. But if she was to continue braiding this short hair in the center of her scalp right here, it would just get bald eventually. So you can sometimes do more harm than good if you're in a situation where you feel like braiding is going to help support your hair and get it to grow, because you actually are going to be pulling those follicles and you give yourself less chance of this hair growing back. Here's another situation where there's visible bald spot. So you definitely do not want to put a braid on this. You may be able to do like a 2-strand twist if it's very, you know, light and it's with your own hair and you're actually not pulling, but you definitely don't want to put any type of cornrow or any type of like faux, you know, the faux locks or any type of twist with hair added, because it's going to add weight and it's going to make this bald spot grow in size. And again, this is scarring. So here where we have this scarring where there's no, see how far apart those follicles are? We would not want to put a braid on this. So even for stylists that may be watching this as well, this is a situation where if a client came into your, you know, sitting in your chair, you would tell them, listen, I can't braid your hair because look how much, you know, you have scarring here. You have some bald spots, you have some visible hair loss. And I don't think it will be wise for you to get braids or any type of hair added with weight, because it is going to make this situation worse. And again, this is in the front, the female pattern thinning. You definitely don't want to put any weight or any tension on this. Again, even if the style's not tight, this the fact that you're manipulating that scalp constantly or pulling that follicle constantly will eventually lead to hair loss. Because that's another thing people say, well, I don't get the style tight. It doesn't matter. You're still, you know, you're still manipulating your skin. You're still manipulating that hair that's already fragile, or becomes fragile because of the constant friction. So you definitely don't want to add tension to it.
Yeah.
Now this is a picture of a healthy protective hairstyle. Now, again, I'm not condemning protective hairstyles. I just want you to know how to use them safely. So a healthy protective hairstyle would be 2-strand twist updos or pinups with your own hair. So I always advise people, if you're going to get a protective hairstyle, it should be a hairstyle that you can do with your own hair, right? So it should be without hair added is always safer. And then these styles should stay in the hair for about 2 weeks, right? No longer than 2 weeks. So you don't want to be like shampooing it. You don't want to be shampooing your hair with the twist in. You definitely don't want to leave them in longer than 2 weeks, because then it starts to lock in place, and you don't want that, because that's going to contribute to tangles and hair breakage. Yes, I said that already, so we're good. All right, so here's a couple of other healthy protective hairstyles as well. So as you can see, these styles are not pulling, and they're done with the client's own hair, and they're pinned up. So you get the best of both worlds. You get a style that is up, that's tucked away, that your hair is resting, because you're not so you won't be manipulating it, right? And at the same time too, it's convenient. You don't have to mess with it for a while, and it's also no tension. There's no tension, there's no redness, there's nothing pulling. So these are some protective hairstyles that are safer for you to use, that you can do with your own hair. And if you were going to add hair, you just needed to add it a little bit if you wanted to add for fullness or more, you know, definition, like some people like. But you wouldn't have to use a lot of hair for these styles. So this question comes up a lot. should you shampoo your hair with a protective hairstyle? So now I put, if you're not adding any hair, so it says no hair added. So that means protective hairstyles with no hair added. I put, if it is a 2-strand twist, updo, or a braided style with your own hair, do not shampoo your hair with the styling. Take down the style so that you can thoroughly shampoo your hair and avoid tangles or your hair locking. So a lot of times people will have 2-strand twists with their own hair, and then they decide that they want to shampoo that style with the twist still in. And what happens is your hair starts to clump together once it dries into that locked, twisted style. So when you take that twist out, you have these dried ends, brittle ends that have been, being washed for a couple of weeks wet. It dries wet, and then it gets tangled and it locks into place. So sometimes the hair will clump together, and there's no oil or any kind of product that you can use to prevent that from happening. So you end up losing more hair trying to skip steps or not take the style down and retwist your hair. So I always tell people to leave the styling for 2 weeks, take your hair out of the twist, shampoo, condition, and then you can restyle. Okay, that's safe to do. But if not, you don't want to leave the twist in and shampoo your hair with the twist in. Okay.
Makes sense.
And then with hair added now, shampooing your hair with a protective hairstyle with hair added will depend on the style and the type of hair that's used. So the type of extension hair that is used, and as well as the type of hair style that you get, is going to determine whether or not you can shampoo your own hair with that particular style. So that's something that you have to consult with the person who did your hair. You would have to ask them, what are the best protective hairstyles that I can use that I will still have access to, one, either cleanse my hair or cleanse my scalp, or wash my hair. And a lot of times it's going to be maybe like box braids or Havana twist or Singalese twist, where your scalp is still open because the boxes are there, so you'll still be able to get in there and cleanse your scalp properly. But like, let's say hair extensions or cornrows, that's going to be more difficult for you to wash your own hair because, of course, the braids are closer together, so you really don't have access to your scalp to get in there to really clean your hair the way you should.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I also put here, because I feel like a lot of people don't know that they could do this sometimes. You can use an astringent such as witch hazel to clean your scalp with a cotton ball if you cannot wash your hair with a protective hairstyle. So for a lot of my cornrow users or people who have protective hairstyles where, like crochet, where you really cannot get to your scalp efficiently, you can use a cotton ball or even a Q-tip and take a little bit of witch hazel, dip it into the cotton ball or the Q-tip, and just rub your scalp a little bit to get some of that buildup off. And that seems to help a lot of clients until they're able to shampoo their hair again. Now, this is a temporary fix, so it won't help if you have like major buildup on your skin or your scalp, but you can use it temporarily until you are able to take the style down and shampoo your hair. Right. So now this is taking care of your hair and scalp after a protective hairstyle. So what does that look like? So a lot of times in the salon, I offer a service. It's called a detox treatment. And basically what a detox treatment is it allows you to just purify your scalp, allow your scalp to feel more rejuvenated and fresh and clean. Because a lot of times when you've been wearing that protective hairstyle for some weeks, your scalp can be a little itchy, it can be a little dry, a little bit flaky. So I always suggest to people, after protective hairstyle, you want to detox your scalp with a product that's going to help remove buildup, So you can look for scalp treatments like mask exfoliators that may have like activated charcoal in them, or clay masks that are going to help remove all that buildup gently before you shampoo your hair. And it soothes, it helps with the itching. You can look for ingredients that have like peppermint, tea tree, what else? Chamomile, lavender, all these things kind of like rejuvenate the skin, and they're anti-inflammatory. They have antibacterial, anti-inflammatory components to them that will help calm the skin. It's not going to help get rid of your dandruff, but it will just help soothe your skin more so that your skin doesn't feel as sensitive, as tight, as dry. That's going to be important after a protective hairstyle to get all that buildup off, because it's been a long time since you was able to really get into your scalp to shampoo it properly, right? So after you do the detox and you want to move to you want to shampoo your hair. So you want to condition your hair. After you shampoo, you want to condition your hair with a moisturizing conditioner that helps soften and removes tangles. Because a lot of people, after they take protective hairstyles down, they'll have some, dryness, of course, especially if they use synthetic hair. Because, synthetic hair can tend to dry the hair more. So you definitely want to use a moisturizing conditioner that's going to give you a lot of slip, a lot of moisture, and help you just break down those tangles as you're combing your hair through, right? And then you want to always remember, after your protective hairstyle, to get a trim. I feel like a lot of people like to skip this step too, again, because they want to retain length. They want to make sure they see those inches. So they're like, can I get the trim the next time? And I'm like, no, you just came out of a protective hairstyle. You need to get that trim now, because the trimming will help prevent those fairy knots a lot of people get. And fairy knots, people don't realize you get from not trimming your hair as often as you should. A lot of people wait a really long time to trim their hair, and then by the time they come in, they have a lot of fairy knots, a lot of dryness and brittleness, and the ends start to clump together. And when you try to detangle your hair, you have a hard time because you haven't been maintaining routine trims. I tell people every 3 months they should get a trim. You don't have to trim off a lot, maybe just a dusting, but it really just helps to prevent the hair from tangling. Okay?
Yeah. I say when that happens, my hair feels like Velcro at the end.
Yes, that's a good. I like that. Yeah, and it sounds like that when you're combing it. You hear that snapping sound. Yep, it's so true. Yeah,
and it holds on to like lint and everything, because it is almost like little claws.
Yes, I love that. That's great. I'm gonna use that. I love that. Yeah, that's good. Yep.
Okay. So we only have 3 more minutes left, but this is so good.
I gotta go quick. Okay. So, all right. So this is about protecting your hairline with wigs. So with wigs, you want to wear a wig grip. Now, a wig grip is something that's going to protect your hairline from rubbing when you're wearing the wig. And I put, you have to also make sure that you have the right size wig. So you don't want your wig to be too small or too large, because that will also affect your hairline. And you can purchase a wig grip on Amazon. Now, let's see. Okay, so just to recap, this is a little bit about healthy protective hairstyles that you can wear. So you want to make sure there's little to no hair added. This is the best option for someone who has hair loss. They will wear, they would wear a style that has no hair added. You want to leave it in for no more than 2 weeks, and you want to make sure there's no weight or pulling the hair follicles. And then this is about what you can do to just maintain it. So protective hairstyles with hair added should only stay in for 1 month. So if you have a hairstyle that you can't, that has hair added, you want to keep it in for 1 month. If you can't shampoo, you want to use the witch hazel, and you want to reduce weight or tension. I'm just reminding everyone.
Yeah.
Let's see. And this.
I love that little guy.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So this is just healthy hair starts with a healthy scalp. So this basically is just reminding everyone that you have to take care of your scalp. So I said, if your scalp is clogged, hair follicles pulled, or the skin is irritated, chances of you reaching your hair goals are slim.
Nice.
Yes. I do have a few more. Do you want me to continue?
We have 1 more minute. So
okay. Wrap it up, right? Okay.
I want to make sure that, you're much good information. Maybe we're just going to have to record like an addendum to this. But I want to make sure that
it's not that many more. It's not that many more. It's going to be like 5 more minutes. Is that okay?
Sure.
Oh, no, you tell me. If you want me to
stop,
no,
let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. You'll have it and you can edit it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So this part is talking about paying attention to your styling habits. So do you overuse hair products? So a lot of people don't realize that, So I say try to reduce how much oils, gel, and edge control you use in an effort to lay your edges, because a lot of times if you're not shampooing your hair with that protective style in, but you're overusing gel or edge control, again, that's going to lead to a lot of caking up on your skin and cause major problems for your scalp in terms of clogging. So you want to be very mindful of that. And also oils. A lot of people say, I oil my scalp. I moisturize my scalp with oil. But I put here that oils do not moisturize. They seal, right? So if you have dandruff or an itchy scalp, placing oil on your scalp will only intensify the problem you are trying to solve. So you want to clean your scalp again with witch hazel or take the style out. So if you feel like the scalp, since you had the style in, your scalp is itchy, then that's just an indication that that style is not for you. And it could also mean that the hair is irritating your scalp as well. And using oil straight out of the bottle will trap, again, dirt and bacteria on your scalp. And this, again, will intensify the itching and the dandruff. So we have to be mindful that, it's okay if the oils are in the products that we use, the styling products that we use, but just using it straight out the bottle, you have to be very careful with that, especially if you're not shampooing your hair on a regular basis.
Right.
That's it. We're done. So this is
awesome.
where you get my contact information.
Oh, I love it. Well, I just want to chat with you for a few minutes. Okay. Just a couple of minutes. Again, we see how we can find you. But you can tell the audience, like, if they wanted to make an appointment with you, how would they be able to do that?
So if you wanted to make an appointment with me, you can go to my website, which is crownworthy.com. And I do have an online scheduler where you can schedule the services that you're looking for. My specialties right now are detox treatments. That's what I really do a lot of. So like cleansing the scalp treatments, also trichology consultations. So basically, I help women identify the reasons why they're losing their hair. Because a lot of times people don't make the connection as to why their hair is falling. It could be like nutritional reasons why, genetics, medication that they may be on. So I help them get to the root cause of why their hair is falling. So you can go to Crownworthy to schedule an appointment, and that's it.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Sophia. This is your second time with us because you bring so much expertise and knowledge, and we can see like the passion that you have, especially when it comes to hair loss. And it's such a shame because actually we're going to be discussing later on in the Healthy Hair Summit, COVID and how people who are recovering from COVID are about hair loss. And that's something that you just don't hear about on the news. I'm pretty sure that eventually you're going to start having your own clients coming to you saying they had COVID and now they have hair loss, hair's coming out in clumps. It's something to think about.
Yeah, but the good news with that one is that, and I don't want to give away too much because I know you're going to discuss it, it's temporary. So their hair should begin to recuperate, so that's hope. That gives them hope. That's why I like doing this too, because I want to be able to offer women hope. But the thing with hair loss, you have to catch it, you have to catch it early in order to really save your hair, and inflammation is like the devil for our hair follicles. So in order not to really experience a hair loss that is very severe and not reversible, you have to make sure that inflammation is not present,
Right. I just had a thought where it's like it starts with the itchiness, right? When your scalp is itchy, it's kind of like your scalp is kind of like tapping to say, okay, I'm not happy, something's wrong. We ignore it, and so it turns into inflammation. And then we ignore it, and your scalp is like, all right, I give up. And
I can't produce some hair no more. I got nothing for you,
Right.
Yeah, because it's literally, there's tissue that's eating away at other tissue. There's cells that's eating away at your tissue. And that's why your follicles close up. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's deep stuff.
It is. So, guys,
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for teaching us. And I hope you guys who have watched this, that you have taken notes and you're going to go to your braider and be like, look, stop putting tight braids in my hair.
Right. Yes, exactly. Or space them out. Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Okay. Right.
So thank you.
Okay.
So go ahead. Sorry.
No, are we gonna do the live now? Are we
I got.
Or you want to?
No, let's do it at 2:00.
You want to do it at 2? Okay. So
All right.
you'll just message me.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Bye.
Uh-huh.